Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. So great to see everyone. I don't know if any of us have cameras, so maybe I shouldn't say see everyone. So great to experience this virtual space with everyone. We will probably wait a couple minutes before we actually start our official event, just because I think we might have a couple schools that are joining late. But to those of us that are here on Zoom and those of us joining on YouTube, welcome to World Oceans Day. This is our primary elementary World Oceans Day event. So make sure you're at the right one. We've already ran our secondary, so if that's one you're looking for, head over to our YouTube and check it out there. If you're in elementary school, you are in the right place. I just want a couple reminders before we get started. It would be great if you could let us know where you're joining from. You can change your name on Zoom by just clicking on your name and going to the more option. Or if you're joining us from YouTube, you can put in the comment box and send a chat message to let us know where you're joining from. We're going to do a little bit of practice poll questions to get started today, just to give us some practice, because it will be an interactive event. So you can go ahead and answer these poll questions as a class, or if you have devices and you're joining individually, you can answer individually. So our friend Jacob at Green Learning came up with these great true and false questions for us. So we'll go ahead and do these as a little warm up. So the first one, all water eventually flows out to an ocean. So I'll just launch our true and false question here for you. You can go ahead and answer on there. If you would rather, answer in the chat. That works totally well too. If you're a teacher and you've got a ton of different answers coming at you, you can go ahead and type them all in. We've got 6 trues, 4 falses. You can do it either way. So I'll just give you guys a minute to have those answers come in. Oh yeah, and that's a good reminder. I have a slide for it as well, but I feel like I should give you a bit of extra time. You should have those worksheets with you. So we sent out an activity sheet for your students to work on today. Make sure it's printed off for them. If they don't have the worksheet, grab a blank piece of paper. That works totally fine. We'll talk about it again in a minute, but make sure all students have either that activity sheet or a blank paper in front of them today for the event. Now, we have a bit of arguing here on this true and false. We've got a few people saying true, a few saying false. Does all water eventually end up in an ocean? Now, I'm going to leave you hanging a bit. So I'm not going to tell you the answer to this, but when we get to Jacob near the end of our event, he will let you know whether you were right or wrong with this true or false question. So I'm making you guys hang on there for a little bit for this one. And our next one, plastic waste stays the same size and shape after entering the environment. So I think we all know that plastic is very durable, right? It's really hard to break it down. It takes forever. Is it durable enough to stay the same size and shape as it's going through the environment? What do we think happens to that plastic? So maybe we put all of our plastic in a garbage bin or in a recycling bin. That's awesome. But for those people that don't, that litter it or put it in the water or put it on the side of the street, what happens to that plastic as it goes through the environment? Stays the same shape, you can put true. Do we think it breaks down, gets smaller? We can say false. What are we thinking for this one? Okay, I've got a lot of answers in here. Again, a bit of a mixture. I think most of us are leaning towards false. So a lot of us are thinking it doesn't stay the same size. And you're right, it actually breaks down. So even though plastic doesn't completely disappear, it breaks into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces, what we call microplastics. Now, the scary thing about microplastics is animals can eat them and humans can eat them. So we actually all have plastic in our body right now from plastic pollution that is in our environment. So kind of a little bit scary. So a little bit of information about how water flows and maybe what happens with that plastic. We will come back to that at the end of our event. So I want you guys to kind of keep this in mind as we go through our event, because we will be revisiting all of these ideas. I would like to welcome you officially to the start of our World Oceans Day elementary event. Thank you so much for joining us. I hear we have a few of you over on YouTube as well. So thank you for joining us on YouTube. It's great to have everyone here. We've got a jam-packed, super interactive event for you. So buckle in, we've got a lot to cover today. I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement for myself. So I'm acknowledging that I'm joining from the Miskwachiwaskyken. This is colonially known as Edmonton, Alberta, and it's found on Treaty 6 territory. It is the traditional lands of many diverse groups, including the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and the Nakota Sioux. And since we're meeting virtually, it's a great opportunity to connect to the lands which we each call home. So I'd like to acknowledge all of the traditional territories and lands that we're joining from across Turtle Island and around the world. As we reflect on our connection to this land, it's important to remember the water as well. The rivers and the lakes and the oceans that connect and surround Turtle Island are what connect all of us together and provide us with food, water, and oxygen. We're very lucky today to be able to look a little bit deeper into the connection that we have, not just with our traditional lands, but also our traditional waters, as we discover some ways to give back to these resources and ensure healthy oceans will remain for many generations to come. Now, as I speak about these oceans that are connecting us, you can see we have students interacting with us from all around the world and all across Canada. And I see in our chat, we do have some schools joining us from Treaty 6 territory as well. So it's so great to have you. I know we have a ton of schools in British Columbia as well that signed up for this one. Makes sense, they're right next to an ocean. And of course, around the world, I see Costa Rica, Sri Lanka, United States, Egypt. So we've got tons of different places. I hope you're able to see your school up there. You get a little shout out for joining us today. And thank you all very much for joining us. A quick little information about our agenda. We will save some time at the end. So I don't know if we have any schools able to share their cameras today, but if you are a school that's able to turn your camera on, we would love to see you. It would be great to be able to see the drawings and the activities that your students are doing. So any of us able to share that today would be great. If not, you can also share them with pictures with us, but we will save a little bit of time for some sharing and some questions at the end. So teachers, make sure during the event, you're trying to get some good questions from your students that we can ask our experts in the last 10-15 minutes of our event. And I did say I would remind you of this. This is our activity sheet. So the activity sheet, we're gonna work on it with Daphne as we build our ocean habitat together. So if you don't have the activity sheet, don't panic. You can use a blank piece of paper, that works totally fine. So you'll definitely need a pencil, some colors would be great. If you're doing this activity asynchronously, please take a picture of your activity sheet and send them to us. We love seeing them. So just a little reminder, have it out. You can work on it as we work together on this event as a group. Okay, that was a lot of reminders. I think I've got everything. I'll go ahead and welcome our presenters now. So first, I'd like to welcome Jacob Parliament. Jacob provides direct support to educators and school boards and engages with partners while facilitating green learnings, workshops, and challenges. Sharing his passion for the environment through education, Jacob has brought learners to the outdoors and the outdoors to learners. Sparking curiosity and a desire to take action, Jacob works to equip learners and educators with the tools and community for making positive change. Welcome, Jacob.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. I'm very excited to be here and to be able to speak today for World Ocean Day.
Awesome. Thanks for coming. And up next, we also have Daphne Austin. So Daphne is a specialist for online learning and ocean literacy with OceanWise. She combines her expertise on the ocean from her Bachelor of Science in a combined degree major of oceanography and biology at the University of British Columbia with years of conservation education and outreach. An expert in connecting students to the ocean, she has advanced environmental awareness for thousands of students across North America and beyond. So welcome, Daphne.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to join everyone on this special day.
Awesome. So we're going to pass it to you first so you can go ahead and share and get started with your presentation.
Amazing. Well, I'm really excited to join you all today. Hopefully, I can get to know a little bit more about you throughout the program, through the chat as well. So just to get us started a little bit before I fully introduce the topic I'm going to cover, I'd love to know what your favorite ocean animal is. So you can either whisper that to someone next to you if you're in class, or you can share it in the chat.
And teachers as well, if you're able to access your chat while your students are sharing, you can give us a couple of them. We don't mind you spamming the chat a little bit, so go ahead and share.
Amazing. I see animals like killer whales or orcas, turtles, dolphins, starfish, which I prefer to call sea stars. Up to you. Lots of whales, sea urchins. Amazing. There's so many different animals in the ocean, and that definitely makes it a special place. Oh, someone said my favorite, sea cucumbers. We also see great white sharks and many others. Well, feel free to keep sharing your favorite animals in the chat. I'm gonna get started here. And I'd like to say thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful World Oceans Day. I'm actually joining you from the Pacific coast or the west coast of Canada, right in Vancouver, British Columbia. And that actually means I'm joining from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Peoples. I'm really grateful to be able to connect with you all, no matter where you are in Canada or abroad in other countries. But no matter where we live, we are all connected by the water, land, and air all around us. And I'd love for us to take a moment to think about how we can better respect that land, water, and sky as people have since time immemorial on these lands. So there's so many ways that we can help the planet. We'll explore a little bit more about that, but I'm actually, and again, my name's Daphne, and I'm an educator with OceanWise. If you don't know OceanWise, that's okay. We are a nonprofit organization whose mission is to empower communities and individuals to take action to promote and to protect and restore the world's oceans. So there's lots of things that you might already do that helps the ocean. We'll learn some more today. But we like to do things like learn more about whales and how we can protect them, find ways to reduce our use of plastic, eat sustainable seafood, maybe even learn about how kelp can help the planet, and also how we can learn from each other how to protect the ocean. And coming into that, I have a question for you. Why on this World Oceans Day should we even care about the ocean? Why do you think the ocean is important? Again, if you're in a classroom, I'll let you maybe whisper your idea to someone next to you or raise your hand to share with your teacher. But we'd also love to hear some ideas in the chat. The ocean can impact our weather. Yes, no matter where you live, it can impact the weather. Definitely. Fishing and food. Yep, there are billions of people in the world that rely on the ocean as a main source of protein. Tides, yes. The movement of the tides, the water rising up and down throughout the day, and that even will allow certain animals to access food as well. Climate change, yes. So maybe the slight warming of the climate or the air around the planet, definitely icebergs, they get impacted by the ocean too. Amazing. Keep throwing your ideas in the chat, but these are all great connections to the ocean. But you know what? There are some reasons that the ocean is important, and one of them I'd like to ask you, and that is, how many oceans are there on Earth? Can be a tricky one. I see some guesses already. I'll give you some options here. I have 1, 5, 7, or 10. How many oceans are there on the planet? What do we think? I did see a guess for 5. Another guess for 5. Oh, one for 7. Ooh, it's a tricky one. Oh, we're going back and forth. Maybe some for 1, none for 10. Well, my friends, the answer might surprise you. Really, although we have names for largely 5 oceans, really, there aren't any walls or barriers in the ocean. It's really just one big ocean. That means no matter where you live, we are all connected through the ocean and even the fresh water that travels near us. All right, I have one more question here before we continue, and that is, life in the ocean produces more than 50% or half of the oxygen in the atmosphere. So everyone take a deep breath in. Take another one. Do you think that half the breaths people take on the planet is oxygen produced by the ocean? True or false? What do you think? Oh, I'm seeing quite a few guesses for true. Let's see. I'll give it a few more seconds. Some for false. Looks like we're going more for true. The answer is true. Lots of the oxygen you breathe is produced by the ocean. So it is super important to us all in so many ways. And it also supports so much life on the planet, just like all those animals that we talked about loving. But within the ocean, there are really amazing areas animals might live. So I have a word for you, and the word is ecosystem. You can maybe give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you've heard of this word before. If not, that's okay. We're going to learn what it means. But I have a few options. So do you think an ecosystem is a game? Do you think an ecosystem is a place where humans live? Do you think it is a type of soil or an area where living and non-living things interact? What do you think? I see some guesses for D, maybe some guesses for some other ones. I mean, even if we don't know what an ecosystem is, it looks like we've got some experts here, and you've got it right. We have guesses for D, and you are in fact correct. An ecosystem is an area where living and non-living things interact or kind of meet and hang out together. So I have a picture on the right here, and it shows maybe multiple ecosystems even. But first, we have some non-living things and living things that make an ecosystem. Can you help me point out the non-living or abiotic things you see in the picture? What is not alive? What do you think?
Can I give a guess while our students are thinking?
Go ahead, Rebecca.
I do see a lot of water. Oh man, Ryan and Khalil, you beat me to it. Water.
Amazing. Yes, we see water. Rocks as well. That's right, Ben. Yeah, we see rocks. They're not alive, but they're part of the ecosystem. Shells. Yeah, they can be part of it as well. We might even have a whole bunch of stuff up in the sky that's not alive, but it's there. I haven't used some of it to breathe. So we might have some air, maybe some dead stuff like maybe a decaying tree or kind of bits of bark that have fallen off. Great job, everyone. Sunshine as well. What a great suggestion. All right, now I need to know some of the living things that we see in this picture. What is alive? So that could be animals, plants, mushrooms and fungi, could be bacteria and other things. Trees, algae, yeah, definitely. Moss, yeah, these are all great ideas. Yeah, lots of trees that we're seeing, maybe some other plants like some grass and maybe even some algae. Maybe some fish that might be popping their heads out of the water. And we have some other algae here as well. We've even got some algae growing in the water. Oh, birds as well. Yeah, great idea. So I want us to dive down because we're talking about the ocean on World Oceans Day. I want us to dive down into a kelp forest. And you can see here, we've got some animals having fun in the kelp forest today. We have some sea lions. but they're hanging out near all of this kelp, creating this kelp forest. And I would love to build an ecosystem with you today. Ours is going to be in a kelp forest today, but what I'd love to know from all of you is, what are some non-living or abiotic things we might see? Maybe some of them are similar to what we saw before. What do you think? What would be non-living that we should see in our ecosystem?
Maybe not. A lot of our other picture was above ground. Maybe it's going to be a little bit different. Not a lot of air maybe on this one.
I think you might be right. I think the air is going to stay above the water, but we might have some of the others. Oh, maybe some plastic. That's a great one. I don't actually have any plastic. That would have been smart to put in here. I will put in this and pretend that it is a plastic sponge, even though it's supposed to be lead. So you got some plastic maybe, which shouldn't be there anyways, but it might be. Sand, yeah, we see lots of sand. We might see some rocks. Amazing. We might have lots of water like we had before as well. All right, let's think about some of the living things. Oh, fishing debris as well. Yeah, maybe we have some old fishing gear. All right, so living things, the biotic part of the ecosystem. I see fish, so maybe we have some fish like some salmon. What other animals might we see? Bugs. Yeah, we might have some underwater bugs, more like plankton, living in the water, food for many other animals. Yeah, we might see some snails. Oh, I can't find my snail. But yes, we might have snails.
Got a crab off in the chat over here.
Oh, crabs, that's right. Otters, yeah, so like a sea otter. Amazing. What other animals might we see? Whales, yes, maybe a humpback whale. We might also see a whale like a killer whale. Sea urchins, definitely. I'll put our sea urchin eating some kelp there. Sharks, yeah, I've got a spiny dogfish right there for us. Narwhals, yes, we won't see them necessarily in the kelp forest, but we would definitely see them in the ocean, in the Arctic where it's a bit colder. Polar bears would be there as well in the colder Arctic. All right, well, my friends, we might have some other animals, like who did we see swimming in the kelp? Does anyone remember? We saw someone with whiskers. They're kind of like a dog of the sea. We saw some sea lions. Might see some sea otters as well. That's right. We might even see some smaller animals that maybe some whales might want to eat, like krill. And even my favorite animal, a sea cucumber. There's so many more animals we could add to our ecosystem. But all of these animals would live together. Now, my question is, if we have all these animals living together, getting their food, getting protection from the kelp, what, my friends, could harm the ecosystem? What do you think? What could harm the ecosystem or the life in it? Plastic, pollution, yeah, definitely. We don't want any of that here. Gas from boats, definitely. People sometimes do some crazy things. We got some people here. There's lots of things that we can do to harm the ecosystem. The nice thing is that there's also a lot of good that we can do to help the ecosystem. So I would love for you to help me. Oh, wrong one. I would love for you to help me in cleaning up one of our ocean ecosystems. I have another ecosystem we might be excited to learn about. And what I'd love for us to do is brainstorm a few actions we might do to help keep these ecosystems healthy and clean. So I'm going to share my screen again. I'll add some of our ideas from before. But what can we do to help that ocean? We can. What do we think?
I want to remind everyone too, a lot of your examples were things that happen right at the ocean. I want you to also try to think and extend. Maybe you don't live right at the ocean. What sorts of things can I do living in the middle of Canada that could help the ocean? So think about that as well.
So we might want to think of things like plastic pollution that we see no matter where we live. What's something you could do to help that? How could you help? You could recycle, definitely. You can do that no matter where you are if recycling is available. What else can we do? We could help clean up. Maybe that's a shoreline cleanup. Anything else we can do? Does anyone walk, bike, or take the bus to school or to other areas? That can be great as well. Not use plastics or just use less plastic. Amazing. There's so many things we can do to make a difference. Something as small as using less plastics. And another one we didn't even mention is tell others. The more that we share what we know about the ocean with others, maybe even tell them how we are going to help the ocean, the more we can make a difference together. And I want us to do a little bit of practice for one of these, and that is, I have another ocean ecosystem here. Maybe you can share in the chat what ecosystem this might be. We designed a kelp forest ecosystem, but what do we see a lot of here? We have, that's right, a coral reef in warmer water in tropical areas. But there are a few things that shouldn't be on the reef. And our turtle friend says, what doesn't belong? Let us know if you see anything that shouldn't be in the ecosystem. Oh, maybe a rubber duck? Boots? What else do we see? I think there's 4 more. Oh, plastic water bottle, a juice box, a spoon. Oh goodness. And there's one more. It's a bit harder to find. It's maybe a bit spooky. Yeah, we've got a ghost net or an abandoned net. So my friends, I would love for you to help me pick up all these items. We're going to help clean up this environment. We're going to get rid of that net, get rid of that rubber ducky, that juice box, that water bottle, the spoon, and those boots. Here we have that healthier, cleaner ecosystem that we hope for. Now, you don't have to be in the ocean to help keep it clean. Just making sure that our own backyards or school grounds are clean of garbage makes a big difference. No matter where we live, water connects us all. So if there's a stream, a river, a lake, or a storm drain near you, that water can end up in the ocean. So I'd love for you to pick an action that you think you can do for World Oceans Day. There's so much that we can do when we do it together. So I'd like to say thank you so much for joining me on this adventure. And Jacob has even more for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daphne. I love playing along with you. It's so nice to make a little ecosystem. And I hope that we all got some ideas of things that we want to add to our picture. And maybe some things that we don't want to add to our picture. We're not going to put any plastic spoons in our ecosystems. That's great. So also, thanks everyone. You guys are doing great in the chat. I'm loving to see the competition of trying to get those good answers out. So keep them coming. We love seeing them. Jacob, I'll pass the mic over to you next to go ahead and share.
Sounds great. Thank you, Rebecca. And I should just check quickly. Can everybody see my presentation coming up all right? Awesome. Yeah, so thank you. I'm very excited to be here and able to speak today for World Ocean Day. And as you might guess from kind of what you're seeing on the screen there, I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on those plastics and what can we do to kind of take some action. And so if you haven't heard of Green Learning before, or maybe you have a little bit, just a reminder. So my name is Jacob Parliament, and I'm speaking from Green Learning today. And so Green Learning is a education not-for-profit, which creates free online education programs that are centered around energy and climate change and green economy, blue economy, just things around kind of protecting our spaces. And so all of our programs, we really try to kind of have this overarching theme of empowering students and having their learnings kind of result in being able to take action and getting out and doing something. And so when we're here talking about World Ocean Day and things like that, what a great kind of space to use to start planning out some actions and thinking about things that we can do. And so I just want to also acknowledge the land and also the waters that I am speaking from today. And so I'm from Hamilton, Ontario, as you can see on the map here. And I'm speaking from the traditional territories that are shared by the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas peoples. And this land was acknowledged in the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Agreement that was made between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources that are in and around these Great Lakes that I'm so fortunate to sort of live around. And I really like to kind of use this and speak a little bit about this Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt because it's a great metaphor for how we can kind of think about protecting these spaces. That one dish or kind of one singular dish represents the lands and the waters that we all share. And that one spoon represents kind of how we're all sharing access. And it's kind of our shared responsibility to kind of take care and start to really have some impacts and continue to the amazing processes that have already been done, but continue on kind of fighting for our environment. And so with our learning today, let's revisit. Rebecca asked a question and posed a little bit of a teaser and we didn't quite find out, but let's start thinking about that. True or false again, all water eventually flows out to an ocean. So just maybe after watching Daphne's presentation, your answer may have shifted a little bit, but maybe within your class is a great chance. Maybe a thumbs up if you think this is true, a thumbs down if you think it's false. And after all of this waiting, I will tell you that it is true. I'm sure there are some minor exceptions or things, but generally and eventually, especially when we're thinking about how our water goes up into the sky and then rains back down, all of this water is eventually making it to the ocean. And so this is an incredible thing. And it's, as Daphne was sort of mentioning, with our one ocean, we're very connected, our entire world, through this water. And so there is a little bit of risk that comes with having this very connected system where anything that is in our water is also able to make it all the way to the ocean. And so what we're going to be talking about today, and I'm sure you can see here as well, is starting to think about that with plastics and how we know that if plastics, and maybe I'm in Hamilton, Ontario, fairly in the middle of kind of Canada area, and I'm far from those oceans, but I know that if I have kind of plastics in my environment, that they can eventually make it there. And so a great way that we've found to kind of talk about this and think about this is we have this kind of plastic interactive. So let's think about this little green plastic bag sort of making it into the ocean. And so I'm going to use this. So our plastic tracker is a great way to kind of start seeing how these movements happen. And so I saw today that we have a class or two that are here from Alberta. And so let's think about Calgary. So let's say our green plastic bag, maybe in a parking lot or something like that, is kind of starting to float around. And this is already giving us a little bit of a probability sort of thing here. But we can see Calgary, our bag's already kind of starting to make it through some of those rivers and streams, maybe into a lake or two. I'll zoom out a little bit here. We can start to kind of see how it's traveling and maybe where it may end up. But I'm actually going to come back to this because this can take a little bit of time to sort of meander its way. And so let's go back to our presentation. And so now that we know that we need to be kind of mindful of these plastics, and I'm sure this is things that you might have even been taught before, but let's start really thinking about what can we do to protect these oceans, and really thinking about how, even though I may not live right at an ocean, or an ocean may be fairly far away from me, there's still a lot that I can do. And so, as Daphne mentioned, teaching others about the importance of our oceans and the life that's in those oceans is really, really important. And I really like to think about this and helping people to kind of fall in love with water or fall in love with those spaces, because people tend to really care and take care of things that they love. And so the next one there is you can also advocate. And what that means, kind of a weird word maybe, but advocate means to kind of speak out publicly and really be in support of a cause. And so telling your friends and family that this is important to you, maybe sharing within your school or beyond, these things can really have an awesome impact. And then the last one, and what we'll kind of focus a little bit more on, is a great way to kind of protect our waters and our oceans is removing plastics and preventing those plastics from ever entering the environment. As Rebecca mentioned in the beginning, once those plastics sort of get into our systems or into our waters, they can really start to break down and kind of cause some more issues. So it's amazing if we can get them away from the water and out of the water before it starts to break down. And so there's an amazing and very fun way that we can do this. So what we can do is turn this, maybe a pile of plastic bottles or something that we have sitting in our recycling bin in school or at home, into something like this. And this is an example of maybe upcycling. There's a few kind of words around this, downcycling, but it's basically taking something that is no longer has a use, at least for what we're kind of needing it for, and turning it into something new and being able to kind of use that and continue to use that. And that way it's keeping it out of the environment. And so with this example, we've got some plastic bottles and things that have been turned into some awesome little bird feeders, maybe even kind of for hummingbirds or something like that. And so I have a challenge that I would like to present to everybody today, and that is going to be to come up with as many or maybe the most creative sort of upcycling or new creation idea that uses a common plastic waste. So on my next slide, I've got maybe something that most of us at least have kind of seen before or maybe had in our home or in our classes. And I really want to encourage you to kind of collaborate with others. If you're sitting with somebody near you, have a little kind of conversation, think about what you could create. And then if you could write your kind of ideas and things into the Zoom chat, that would be amazing. If maybe you have the chance to draw something, you could always show it on your camera as well. But I'm going to time us for 1 minute just to be mindful of time. So it's going to have to think pretty quickly. And so without further ado, actually, my last thing, something to keep in mind, and especially if you're going to be doing this maybe on your own in the future, try to really think about, is there a problem I could solve with what I'm creating? What would that product kind of look like? What is my creation going to look like? And then is it useful? Is this something that I'm actually going to use, or am I kind of doing this just for fun? And it's really good. While there's maybe benefits for both, it's great if we can have that really useful and longevity, because it's keeping that plastic out of the environment. But let's go forward with our challenge. Okay, so you have 1 minute to get creative. Think of something that you could make, maybe use in your home or your classroom with yogurt cups. And I've got a variety kind of pictured there, but I'm going to start our timer and talk within your class or within kind of your group around you. Maybe brainstorm, what could you make with some yogurt cups?
I can, while they're thinking, I can share. Mine's not very creative, but I can tell you what I use mine for. So I'll save the plastic yogurt containers. I usually get the big ones, and I use them for painting. So that's what I use, that I put all my water in and keep all my stuff together for like a lot of different art supplies, but mostly for painting. So they work really well. They never really break down or anything like that. So they're super helpful for that.
Yeah, that's an awesome one too. It's like even goes to show, like, sometimes just nice and simple as they are, these things can be reused rather than going out and kind of buying something specifically for that. I'm going to mention a few that we've got in here. We got making a big sculpture. We've got a drum set. Plant pots is a great one. I know a few people that like to use those smaller yogurt cups for like kind of starting their seeds in the spring is a great way because you can reuse them every year. Ooh, lava lamps would be great. Yeah, yeah. We're getting about 10 seconds or so, final kind of push. All right. And then I've got a very exciting, pretty cool project that was done and sent to us for one of our challenges coming up as an example of what you could do. All right. And so with that, yeah, so we've got some kind of great ideas there. And the more kind of time and especially having these things kind of in person and in your hands can really help to sort of plan this out too. But I want to share with you a great kind of story here where we had a class that spent a few months actually collecting bottle caps. And these were bottle caps from many different things. I think we've got things like peanut butter jars in there, some marker lids, different things like spices, coffee. And so they collected all of these caps and then after seeing all the different kind of colors and things that they had for options, they all created kind of an idea or what their mural could be because they wanted to create this big mural to put in their garden space. And so this was the end result, and I think it looks incredible. It's really amazing. There's over 2,000 plastic bottle caps have been used. And not only is it a great kind of source of art and really exciting kind of story piece that they can have in their school, but these bottle caps also serve kind of a second purpose where they're helping the pollinators and different insects that are in their garden by providing a space for some water for them, which we thought was just an incredible thing and certainly a way of kind of thinking outside of the box where not just one little item, but collecting all of these different caps. And so with this, I just want to come back to kind of how we can sort of take those steps within our school. But before I do, let's check on our plastic bag and see where we've ended up. And so we have ended up in our ocean here, making sure everyone can still kind of see me here. But look at all of this distance that we've traveled, starting in Calgary, kind of even close to the west coast in Canada. We moved all the way across and east into the Hudson Bay, came up and across the Labrador kind of Sea there and right into the North Atlantic Ocean, even kind of circling around around the base of the North Atlantic garbage patch. And you can really start to see that plastic bag that you might kind of walk past in a grocery store parking lot or things like this can really kind of travel that distance and that all of these waters are connected. So taking the moment and picking these things up can really kind of have that long-term kind of down the line impact where that plastic bag may have eventually made it to the ocean and split up into many, many pieces. So by picking it up, you've done an amazing kind of service to that water. And just to finish off here, sorry there, everyone. Just to reiterate that these ideas that we just kind of did some brainstorming quickly, turn them into a creation or go home, maybe look in your recycling bin or kind of those things that you have around the house. What could you make them with? And if you wanted next year, you can always enter into our Eco 360 challenge, which is where we got that submission with the awesome bottle cap mural. Get outside, pick some things up this summer, share what you're learning, talk with your family tonight at dinner or talk with your friends. It's always great to kind of keep these stories going. And I just want to say is thank you. I'm very, very happy that we were able to join for the World Ocean Day today, and always very excited to kind of share some opportunities for taking action and kind of feeling involved with these communities.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jacob. I love getting to see the plastic tracker. I mean, I don't love it because it's scary, but I do like the idea of like, wow, this piece of garbage that I have here could be affecting a family in Mexico. It's like such a cool way to like tie all of the oceans together. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
So we normally are trying to end in the next minute. So if you do have to hop off in the next minute, we totally understand. But we will probably keep going as long as we have a few questions coming in. So now's your chance to all of those that are here on Zoom or on YouTube. If you have a question for our experts, now's your chance to ask that question. Now, I totally get it. If we're like running out of time, we might only do a couple, but it'd be great if we could get a couple questions so you can go ahead and type them in the chat. While we're brainstorming a couple of questions, I do just have one thing I wanted to share with everyone. This is our Which Ocean Creature quiz are you? Which ocean creature are you quiz? This is a great way that we can kind of see what you thought of the event, but it's also fun because you get to see what ocean creature you get. So we loved seeing everybody share what their favorite ocean creature was at the start of the event. I would like to see if we actually maybe get some of those results. So I also popped the link in the chat. We'll send that over to YouTube as well. If you are watching this event, maybe tomorrow or the next day or anytime, you are still welcome to do this quiz. So you can do it individually as one person, scan it with your phone, or if you're a class, you can click on the link and do it as a class. It lets you answer for as many people as you need to. If you want to share the link with your students and they can do it later when they're at home, that works great as well. So lots of different ways you can do the quiz. If you get a chance to do it while you're still in the Zoom meeting, let us know what you get as a response. I like seeing what everybody gets. How many great white sharks do we have? I don't know. So yeah, just a little reminder for you. Now we do have a question in the chat. It says, are people trying to clean up the ocean garbage patch, and how? Do either of our speakers have any information about the ocean patch cleanup? Do we know?
I can share. One of the biggest programs that's going on is actually by the plastic tracker that you saw Jacob sharing is from the Ocean Cleanup. And they have big nets that actually sit still in the ocean and let the ocean currents push plastic into those nets that can then be picked up by boats and disposed of. But I will say, even that group that's been cleaning up the garbage patches, they have put a lot of effort into preventing more plastic from getting into the ocean. So they have big nets that they even have in rivers where most of that garbage is coming from. So remember, it's not necessarily just people along beaches that are contributing, it's people all over the planet.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to point out, because I think a lot of students have this misunderstanding of the patch. It's not like one giant clump of garbage that's all stuck together and we can just pick it up. It's loose garbage floating in a really big area. So it's not super easy to go in there and just clean it all up. Much easier to stop it at the source and get rid of those plastics that are going into our oceans. Okay, we probably have time for 2 more questions. So this one says, are there fish we shouldn't eat because it's bad for the earth? We didn't really talk much about seafood options. Daphne, I know OceanWise has some information on this, so maybe I'll pass this one on to you.
Yeah, I would say one of the things you can do is look for recommendations from sustainable seafood organizations. So OceanWise has a sustainable seafood program as well. So you can always look for that kind of O, that little fishy O, in your grocery store or on restaurant menus. It's a recommendation of a more sustainable option to eat. But if there was one animal in particular, there are many types of shrimp that are not very sustainable. Whereas I would say lots of clams and oysters and mussels are a really sustainable choice. So it does depend on where it's coming from and how it's collected, but there you go.
So if you get any input on building the menu with your family, you can opt for mussels instead of shrimp. Okay, and one last question that was just up in the chat, and I think this is a good wrap up that we could maybe get from each of you, is what is a top impact or thing that each of our students can do in their home to help?
Yeah, I think I'm going to cheat slightly by answering with 2. And the first one is there's some things that you can do kind of yourself and directly, like being really mindful of making sure that when you are using a plastic, it ends up in the recycling, or maybe as you're walking to and from school or kind of those sort of things, is picking up some of those plastics to help keep it out of our environment. That's a great way to kind of take action and feel really kind of good while you're doing it as well. The second one I'm going to say is to share that with other people, because this is such a kind of keeping the plastics are trying to stop things from the source and keeping plastics out of the environment. The more people that know how important this is and how much that we all care and how passionate we're all about this, the more people that we're going to have kind of taking that extra second to recycle something or things like that. So it's my twofold answer is kind of take some actions yourself and let others know that you're taking those actions and that there's things that you really care about.
I'm going to add on to what Jacob said and say, another element that kind of ties those two together is maybe even challenge people that you know to join you in your actions. You know, maybe in your classroom, you want to make a goal to commit to reducing an item of plastic together, or maybe you want to make a poster in your school telling people about what you've learned. There's many ways that we can take actions together, and when we do that, it creates a lot of positive change. So I'm glad we all got to connect on World Oceans Day and think about some of those changes we can make together.
Awesome. And I think that's a really great note to end on, but we do have one more question in the chat. So if you wanted to answer in the chat, you can both provide, because it's kind of an interesting question. Will we ever live in the ocean like submarines? Feel free to answer that one in the chat while I give one last reminder to our schools. This is our last event of the semester. We're spending a couple months to plan a great new whole host of events for you all for the fall. So please make sure that you subscribe to our newsletter if you haven't already. That way you're not going to miss out on any great events that are upcoming and any new opportunities you have to be involved with CGE. We're getting even more interactive, even better in the fall. So take a minute, teachers, to scan that QR code or click on the link to join us for any upcoming events that we have later. And I did want to say one last thank you to both of you for presenting today. We love doing these events with you. I learned a lot, so I hope that the kids here learned a lot. And if anybody has anything they'd like to share with us or Green Learning or Oceanwide, send them to us. We would love to see them. And thank you very much to everyone for participating, and happy Oceans Day.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I know we lost a couple of them in our last